Welcome to the Old Fashioned Tradesman, where experience is earned, craftsmanship matters, and every job has a story, usually involving a few mistakes, some hard lessons, and maybe a trip back to the supply house. So grab a drink, pull up a chair, and join us as we celebrate the people, stories, and craftsmanship behind the trades. Welcome to the Old Fashioned Tradesman.
Well, welcome back to another week, boys. How's it going today?
Good. I think we should
Yeah.
follow that sound effect up with "In a world where tile."
In a world where tile does not fall off your wall.
This episode of Back Butter.
Back butter. What the heck is that?
Funny.
Hey, well, it's good to see everybody this week.
Let's get it rolling.
But we thought this week we'd discuss a little bit about prepping, setting. So I think, we can think about tile throughout history, tile we see today. It could be as beautiful as you want it to be, but really what's behind it is what matters, right? Tile is aesthetic. I always say that it's the jewelry, whether it's the floors or the walls, it's really the jewelry or the lipstick that it looks good. Now it's a wear layer, and it's the ultimate wear layer, right? Can last hundreds of years, but realistically the tile itself should be part of the whole picture, not just the picture. The tile has to be properly supported. It has to be installed with the right materials. If we're talking about wet applications, it has to be properly waterproofed. Water is evil of a thing as it comes to when it comes to construction, doesn't it? We think about everything we build our house with. Water wants to eat it and live inside of it. So, when we think about our floors, no matter how rigid or solid or engineered our flooring is, there's always some aspect of movement that happens. And so we thought we'd talk a little bit today about why we need proper preparation, setting methods that vary, and not all are created equal. But there are many ways to skin that cat. So what do you guys think about that?
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. We've been trained by some of the best people on one particular brand of waterproofing and uncoupling membrane, but we all know that there's other ones out there, and we've probably used most of them. We said some on the last podcast, the 9235. Kelby's starting to itch right now. You have
I'm twitching.
Hydroban, you have
His skin is starting to match his hair.
Yeah. There's a ton out there, and I think we have probably enough knowledge to fill up probably 3 podcasts with
every
all the
color,
different
every
kinds.
shape, every dynamic, in whether it's floors or walls, wet or dry. I mean, there's something out there, and there's a lot of times there's the right product for the project, and there's other ones that are applicable and still will work, and then there's some that are not good at all, right? I think back in time, one of my first flooring jobs when I moved to Alabama was concrete board, right? A half-inch concrete board, and I remember showing up to the job site of materials supplied by a local floor covering store, and I'm moving from the West Coast and had a little bit of tile experience. And so the first thing I'm looking for is, where's all the thin set, right? We're going to install this concrete board job, or CBU as we might want to call it, right? Cement backer unit.
Yeah.
We could be fancy.
Took me 2 months to figure out what that was.
Yeah, CBUs. And so I'm looking around for the thin set to install it, and I noticed in the garage was like 4 or 5 cases of the really large tubes of liquid nails. And the
Nice.
local flooring store was like, this is what we want you to install it with. And then it was a bunch of roofing nails. And did it hold the backer board down mechanically to the floor? Absolutely. Did the next guy who had to tear it up one day probably hate my guts? Absolutely. Did it do the proper installation or was it designed properly for keeping all the seams from not moving and becoming a monolithic installation? No. Back then, mudding and taping backerboard seams was not something that was skipped. It was not something that was known for the most part. It was years down the road before I even saw that for the very first time. I always thought going back into, my installation days when we'd go demolish, I'll get it out. A job, when I would pop up some tile, if I saw mud and tape seams, I immediately knew we were in for a chore because that floor was more than likely installed properly. When I didn't see that, or I saw smooth shank nails holding backerboard down, I thought, we're going to have the demo done pretty quick. We might be at the golf course this afternoon.
Yeah, the company I work for, from 2004 to 2021, we only used cement board on the floors and hot dip galvanized roofing nails with unmodified thin set. No taping the joints. I will say, as quickly as we put these in, and there was a time in 05, 06, we were doing 210 houses a week. Not a month, a week. And it ran for like 2 months. And Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac gave everybody a house. They Oprah Winfrey did. You get a house and you get a house. And they were tile all over the place. But I will say that we got very, very minimal callbacks on cracked grout joints or anything like that. So,
how did you install 30 houses a day? How did the company handle that?
with 60 crews.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That makes a little more sense.
Yeah. I was an estimator at the time. I was just getting out of the field, going into the office, and you'd pull up in the morning. You had to get there extra early because those guys would get in line and we would basically auction the houses off. So we knew the good guys would get there first and we'd give them the big houses. Shout out to Mr. Caesar. Caesar was my boy. He had gold tooth in the front.
That's right.
And when I first met him, he kept coming up to me because I had some of the bigger houses down in Southern Maryland. He goes, "Give me chicken." And I'm like, "But I don't speak Spanish." And give me chicken. Give me chicken. And I'm like, what is he saying? And we had a guy, Frank Hernandez, that ran our service department. He was El Salvadorian and he was fully American. But his parents were from El Salvador, first generation. And he's asking you for a kitchen. He wants a kitchen, not a chicken. I was like, he's saying chicken.
Yeah. He didn't want to do backsplashes. He wanted square footage.
No, yeah, he wanted chicken. So I learned. So I was, "Hey, chicken." I go, "Bokak, bokak," and he'd come running up. I give him a house. But I will say, through that whole time, the company I work for, if it's at 18 inches AFF above the finished floor in the shower to get waterproofing, we did 17 and 7/8 because that eighth of an inch added up and you could get another sheet out of that eighth of an inch. So and now the company I work for, we do full Schluter Curdy board on the walls to the ceiling. We rip out the drywall at the top and put in Curdy board. So
yeah.
Two different
It's
worlds.
one of those, maybe we didn't know what we didn't know back then.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
For sure.
Hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, like we talked about last episode, a lot of times we're hitting the ground running with a couple $100 worth of tools and go. And, the job sites were our education. I used to tell contractors before we would do training workshops that there's no such thing as a free education. And sometimes failure and replacing a job is your tuition. Right? Yep. School of hard knocks.
Yep.
Yeah. Cost you triple to take it out.
Yeah.
And replace it.
I remember going on an inspection a few years ago, and we'll leave this installer nameless. We'll call him Fred. And went out there to look at the tile job, and it was about 1,800 square foot of 20 by 20 porcelain. And they were asking me, why is it breaking? Is it because it was 24-inch on centered trusses, or is it the plywood, or is the house settling? And I looked around and the whole floor looked like it had it had cracks in almost every tile, and a lot of them almost looked like impact cracks. So I thought, okay, maybe there's a bunch of hollow spots. So the installer hadn't quite made it out there yet, and so I'm out there with the people who ran the floor covering store. I remember popping up the first tile with I had my tools out there, but I noticed it was loose, and I actually used my car key to take a tile up, a 20-inch by 20-inch porcelain. And, the spidey sense tingled like, we might have a problem here. Houston, we might have a problem. And so I went in another room, it was all interconnected, kitchen, dining, utility, hallways, kind of went out into like a screen room, a huge area. Another tile popped loose. And I noticed all the tiles are like just perfectly clean. And I'm seeing nothing but trowel marks on the floor. And this whole floor was set with an uncoupling membrane specifically designed for 24-inch on center. And so I noticed none of the tiles I had taken up were back buttered. Right. So they had set using probably a 1/4 by 3/8 trowel. So they can get really any transfer to the back of this tile. And these were 20 by 20s. And then you think about a floor that's on 24-inch centers, there's a little bit of micro deflection, right? So you need really good coverage. So when the installer came in and we kind of looked around and he's like, oh, it's a thin set issue. And I'm like, I don't think it is. So we go outside and we talk. And I'm like, how come you didn't back butter these tiles and give yourself a chance? And I still remember this day, his comment was, nobody in this town will pay me enough to back butter a tile. Which seems ridiculous because at the end of the day, when you're the installer, you're in charge of that, right? You are the final person to touch this floor. So you're the one liable for the finished goods. And so I was like, okay, if we have 1,800 square feet of tile and you have to back butter every one of these tiles, like how long is it going to take you to do that? He's like, no, it's going to take too long. So I said, let's conduct an experiment. And we mixed up some thin set and I had him back butter a tile and I clocked it. And he's good installer, been doing it for probably 15 years. He back buttered a tile in a matter of just a couple seconds. And so I said, okay, let's calculate this. So we did the math. We figured 20 by 20 tile, the square footage of that, divided that by 1,800 square feet. And the math was something crazy. Like the whole job would have taken him 27 extra minutes to back butter the entire house if he did it consistently, right? With those times. So I'm like, 30 minutes of work and we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? If you had taken 30 extra minutes to prep your tile in this instance, not the floor, we wouldn't be out here. And like I said, old installer, known him for years. And he's like, I don't believe it. So he goes on about his day. He ends up having to replace the whole job. We helped him out with some material to soften the blow. But I remember seeing him a few months later. I was doing a training at the end of the year, a wrap-up training on some new product. And he came to me and goes, I went back to my shop after that week and I made my own jig and I laid concrete board. I laid uncoupling membrane. I did it back buttered. I did it not back buttered. And then I tore it up about 2 weeks later. And I said, and he goes, you made a believer out of me. He goes, tearing up a back buttered tile was a nightmare. Those tiles did not just pop loose like I've been used to. So one of those deals where maybe he didn't know the science, maybe he didn't care until it cost him. So he paid his tuition, but he learned that prep and technique makes a big difference. Cost him a couple bucks.
Yeah. Proper size trowel matters too. 20
Absolutely.
by 20 when you're using a 3/8 trowel, and you'll never get enough coverage.
No,
won't even touch it.
Even back buttering it, he might have had a fighting chance for it to be okay, but like predictable and repeatable, no, not enough trowel.
No, I actually have a friend of mine who does tile along with his remodeling, and he loves the 3/8 notch trowel.
It's easy, and your thin set goes really far.
It does, but the funny thing is, he does a 3/8 notch trowel on the back of the tile too.
Oh,
so it's like okay, so you're using twice the work, twice the effort to make sure you have the right amount. Just use the right trowel. Yeah. Use a 1/2 by 1/2. Be done with it. Back butter. You're a 1/2 by 3/4.
Your company doesn't like the 1/2 by 1/2. They teach it in the workshops that the 1/2 by 1/2 is not good.
Hey, what company would that be, Mike?
It's the blue one or something.
It's the company that we keep. How about that?
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
the flip side of that is we had a builder kind of contact us, and he's like, "Yeah, I noticed you guys weren't back buttering." I'm like, "Yeah, they don't back butter," and he's like, "Well, why not?" He's like, I watched the famous YouTube videos, and I'm like, "That's great. These guys put in 20,000 square feet a year easily. They rarely have any problems." And I said, if you fill in the big lugs on the bigger tile, that's another bag of thin set. So for every bag of thin set on the floor, you're spreading a bag of thin set on the tile. Almost. I did the math on it. So,
You have a spreadsheet for that?
I could make one right now, actually. I'm on my computer. I did at the time. I don't know what I did with it. It was an argument that I had with the guy. And, it's not required. It's suggested that we do that. But the installer had a point. He's going to spend, and he paid for the thin set. Our installers at where I used to work, they paid for the thin set. We tried to keep them from throwing the part bags in the dumpsters, and they didn't care. They threw it in there anyway. But anyway, so he said I would have spent X amount of dollars, and if I have one tear out of a 200, 300 square foot job, I don't care. Because I'm not spending all that money. And he goes, the next guy's going to love me because I didn't back butter. So, I'm telling you, I worked the bottom of the bottom, and they don't care. I can show them the back butter all day long. So the proof's in the pudding. We, even though we only waterproofed up 18 inches, we didn't have any water leaks. A couple water leaks we did have, we had a roofing nail. We had 3cm granite going in on the seat. So, of course, that was open. We did all the tile work. My uncle actually went out on the job, and it was leaking in the family room. We checked all the bathrooms, couldn't find it. Water is a very sneaky thing. So we had found out, we pulled out the seats one by one. Luckily, it was the second one. Its house had like 6 bathrooms. Pulled it out, and a roofing nail must have fell behind the granite, 3cm granite on the seat. Now, this was 2 years later. So through expansion and contraction, it must have worked its way through the rubber membrane.
Just picked at it, right?
Yeah.
Just picked at it.
It came down, hit the sill plate, and I guess that was the non-load bearing wall. So I guess it sagged a little bit, and it was running. It was 20 feet away from where the leak was actually happening, leaking into the family room. And the only saving grace is they had a dining room table from some European country that was in their dining room that was like from 1890 or something. It was like the great-great-grandmother's dining room, and it was in the dining room. And if water would have touched it, it probably would have ruined it for life. This just leaked on the floor. So, but yeah, so it did, we put tons of jobs in. They did not tape any of the joints on the walls. They didn't do anything. They barely put anything around the niches that they put on the wall. They just make a niche and tile it and go. So, but
I feel like part of that is, if you think about maybe a shower 20 to 30 years ago, right? We had typically at that time a shower head, and probably didn't have steam showers for the most part. I mean, those were super rare, right?
Yeah.
That we did those, like, especially in the houses you're talking about, trying to install 210 houses a week. Those houses were a shower head, get them done, right? Maybe 100 square feet of tile. So while we were still talking about a lot of water, if we fast forward that to where we are today, they were bathrooms back then. They are spas now, right? The houses today are spas. Even kind of what you might consider a production builder is typically going to be multi-shower heads, possibly a hand sprayer. I think the hand sprayer part of it has probably complicated it over the last however many years, because now we're not just spraying water down at us, right? The hand sprayer is spraying all over the place, or I factor in body sprayers or misters. Like, water's going in different directions than when we started our careers, and when, the generations before us, those typically had a shower head. So now not only are we putting in more water, more temperature, more steam, we're putting water in all kinds of different directions and, in every way possible. So I think that's probably a huge jump in like shower waterproofing preparation is we're just asking more of a shower today than we did even a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those things it's not new. I mean, there's steam showers that are 150 years old in this country, but that's really, really rare. And those were really, really expensive homes versus today. We might see, like I said, a shower, a standard 120-foot shower with 3 or 4 heads in it with a diverter valve. And so we're just asking more. So I think gone are the days of the 18-inch prep, right? People still do it. But I think you're going to get water in areas that we didn't expect. That we did back then. I remember showers that were you just put banding around the shower floor and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Or water, or you paint it up so high, or you put some type of mesh with a liquid applied. You only went up, the first few inches because you were like, oh, that's 95% of the water. Well, what's that percentage now? It's probably a lot different now, right? Because we're getting water up higher. And then we have rain heads where the water's coming from the very top and it's just cascading water down on 100% of the shower. So I think preparation for water, I mean, we have all seen water do some really weird things in showers, haven't we?
Yeah. I think, through my time at Schluter, one of the most fascinating things, I think it was Aaron that came up with that, or one of the engineers. We teach it in our meetings that we had that, outside of the house, you spend X amount of dollars on shingles, you wrap the house, you tape the windows, you tape the seams, you tape the wrap, and you might get 36 inches of rain. What was it? It's 2 people using 1 shower, in 1 year,
12 minutes a
15-minute
day.
shower, 12 minutes a day is 1,100 inches inside the shower.
Yeah.
When you said that in front of, a room full of custom builders, even the regional builders, they could be literally falling asleep because they had a party night the night before and not paying attention, checking their financials on their laptops. As soon as you said that, they were like,
Yeah. What? Say what?
the ears perked up and they really
Yeah.
paid attention after that because it made sense to them.
Yeah. And that's one shower head at 2.5 gallons a minute, right? In a custom home, like we said. I remember recently I had a builder call me and ask me what kind of drain he needed to install because he had a rain head that flowed 10 gallons a minute from one rain head. The first thing I asked him was, I said, is your homeowners intending on showering in scuba gear? Because they're going to drown.
You don't need soap. You're getting power washed at that point.
Yeah, exactly. They literally are swimming.
Exactly. Well, and I think because of the discussion of water, over the last 20 years, that discussion of water has migrated to the discussion of vapor drive. So when you talk about vapor drive, I mean, we all can see water. We can't see vapor drive. And then the misconception that grout and tile are waterproof within themselves. So when you talk about those things that people, quote unquote, are savvy on because they're internet savvy, but they're not savvy enough to understand that just because it sheds a little bit of water doesn't mean it doesn't accept water. So I used to liken it to my customers. Your grout and your tile are just like your concrete outside. When it rains, what does your concrete do? It changes colors, right? Because it accepts moisture. But that moisture only goes so deep too. But what goes deeper is the vapor. The vapor is what causes the issues, because then it builds up behind the tile. It causes issues. It starts to rot things because it can't escape back out. And that's where a lot of the systems have taken a turn to make sure that they're breathable, right? So when you got your roll-ons aren't breathable, not all of them. So having that discussion is very pertinent on the front end, whether you're doing estimating like Mike, or whether you're selling tile like yourself, or whether you're doing what I do, talking to custom home builders about prepping their houses correctly. You have to talk about that. You have to have that discussion about the vapor drive. I know, Mike, you want me to say it, and it's not happening.
Well, and the other side of this coin, we just talked about how evil water is. Yes, water rots the system out or rots the structure out, but there's a 4-letter word that has reared its ugly head in the last 20 years that has become a huge litigious thing, right?
It's not
Mold.
the one you're thinking of, Mike.
Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah, different 4-letter word.
Should have said the
No,
M
but
word.
yeah, yeah, mold. It's the deadly killer, right? We've all seen horror stories or heard or told them. But that's the thing that we don't see, and we live in a world now where people are allergic to everything, right? Or you develop an allergy to it and don't even know it. And there's so many variations of molds and things like that, and the mildews and the molds, and just the damage they can do to your respiratory system and to your health in general. And that's all caused by water at the end of the day, like you were saying, Chris, with vapor drive or not, or it doesn't allow itself to dry properly. It doesn't have good ventilation, all the different aspects of that. So that's just another thing that really kind of tips towards proper preparation, right? You have to have good waterproofing. You have to have excellent drainage. You have to have proper ventilation. Right? You can waterproof a shower to look like an aquarium, but if there's no airflow, then you're going to have mildew and mold growing on the face of your tile, right? Because it's still not going to fully dry out. So all those things really come into the prep. So when we're talking to home builders or designers or architects, depending on what aspect we're doing, it's not just, hey, this tile is a porcelain tile. It's not going to stain. It's not going to crack. It's not going to, have problems. Or, this is a man-made synthetic product, or this is a natural stone. It's the entire project, not just the tile, not just the waterproofing. It needs to be strong. It needs to be, be able to handle some movement and expansion and contraction. It needs to be able to breathe and be able to dry itself. So it's the whole package when we're talking about preparation, not just one aspect. You can't bake a cake with one ingredient, right?
You could try.
No, that's called a saltine cracker.
Is bourbon a cake? Can you make bourbon a cake?
I don't think bourbon is made with one ingredient, Mike.
But yeah, good, excellent points. I think it was pretty neat. Recently saw there was a guy that did I think it was like a 6-part series, and he took Schluter, he took Hydraband, he took Redguard, he did all these little tubs. Recently, so he tested the waterproofing, put cardboard underneath of it, saw it leak. He did the pricing on each one of them. It was probably, I can't remember the name where I give him a shout out, but it was fantastic. I think all of us were bouncing his videos back and forth. I have to find out what his name is and bring him up, because I don't think I've ever seen a more detailed shut up, use what you want video, which is what it ended up being. If you're a Schluter guy, use Schluter. If you're Hydraband, use Hydraband. And Redguard
Just
was,
do it right.
Yeah, do it right. And he did everything, read the directions while he was doing it. He did a recent one with putting floor heat in a shower, and he built a little mock-up and heated it up, and it dried 8 to 10 hours before the one with no heat in it. We have a ongoing argument in this house of closing the shower door. It's a slider, so it doesn't stick out.
Keep it
But
open.
leaving it open dries it out instead of having every door in the house closed. But it was really neat seeing that, how quickly it dried out.
Yeah, when I wish I still had the video. When I first moved into my house, we heated everything because why not? And I did a little time lapse of after a shower of the shower floor with the heat on versus heat off, and it was just ridiculous how fast it dried. And so that was always the selling point, especially to the custom luxury builder world, was, do you need heated floors in a shower? No. It is nice to have a heated seat instead of sitting on an iceberg. But the reason for the heated floor was to dry that moisture out, right? To just get it gone. I always say it's like you're steaming the floor dry with that. You're baking it from the underside. So just that aspect of it. Is it awesome to stand and walk in the shower, and especially a larger shower that maybe doesn't get hot water everywhere? Yeah, it's pretty nice to be able to stand on any part of it. But just the sanitary aspect of it, and just adds to the preps. I was going to mention on that same testing video. Yeah, there it is. What's his name? John
Belenky.
Belenky. Yeah.
Look
Good
him up
job,
on
John.
Facebook. Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. What?
TikTok.
And he really worst cased it, right? He
Yeah.
didn't just build showers. He built tubs. Like
Mhm.
they held water, which is at the
And he
end of the
didn't do it for
day.
24 hours. He did it for a number of days.
Yeah, I think it was
which at
72 hours.
like I said, he went worst case because most shower systems, doesn't really matter the brand. Most of them are not designed to do that. They're not designed to make a fountain or an aquarium. They're designed for to waterproof the water so that it drains away. He took it the next step and said, "Hey, worst case scenario, we're going to plug the drain. We're going to hold water. We're going to test the seams. We're going to test the overlaps. We're going to see if we can make it fail." And he made some fail. And some surprised me. They did really good. But I think it boils down to using any particular brand the correct way, right? Using it in completion fully, and not mixing science and mixing technology. There's a lot of installers that, when we talk about warranties with preparation and things like that, and they say, "Oh, warranty's only as good as what it's written on. I'm my own warranty." And, when I would have conversations with installers, I'm like, that's great. At the end of the day, you are your warranty. But if you have a $30 or $40 or $50,000 failure as a small business owner, and let's say your insurance company doesn't play ball, doesn't come to bat, can you survive that? Can you eat a $30 or $40 or $50,000 job on your own and still be in business tomorrow? That's not that many small business owners are that liquid and can handle that kind of failure. So at least by doing it completely by a certain manufacturer specifications or recommendations, at least you've got some help, hopefully. At least you got a fighting chance. I would tell any installer out there or any home builder or any tile professional, a lot of your warm and fuzzies as far as your warranty go are going to boil down to how good of a relationship you have with said company and said representative in the field. If they have no idea who you are and you have a problem, then why are they just finding out who you are? And have you been to some training? Have you ever called the guy and talked to him on the phone by any brand? If you have a really good relationship, a really good working relationship with your representative and your company, and they know who you are and they've helped you on trainings or they've been to your job site, it kind of helps. They can kind of vouch and be like, before the inspection even happens, yeah, this guy does good work. Something might be fishy. Something might have happened and gone wrong. We need to go look at this and see if we can help it out. But if you're a one-off, never heard from you, never going to hear from you again, where's the return on investment to really stand up, and help that guy, right?
Yep, that's it. That's it. The other big thing is you got to learn how to read. And
What do you mean?
Installers don't read, right? And if you don't
That's
put
why
the
they
pretty
put
little
photos.
and they don't look at the pretty pictures either. So it's that thing of, there's directions, right? It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, we've all done it. We've all just grabbed a bucket of whatever or a bag of whatever and we'll mix it up because it's the way we were taught to do it.
Well,
But
we're guys, so we
well,
don't read
we
any
are.
directions.
We are. But at the end of the day, there's products out there now that if you don't read them, you don't know how to use them. You get on the side of technology, you buy a new camera or something like that. You have to figure out how to use it. So we're in the world where you have to actually read directions now.
We need the bag of thin set to, instead of coming in a plastic bag or a clay bag, to come in like a metal case with a lock that requires you to have scanned the QR code and approve that you watched the training before it'll unlock itself to be used. Some kind of verification.
Yeah, you got to answer the question. Do a monkey survey. Open it up.
Yeah, we'll send you the access code in 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
you're right.
It's sad though, but there's still a lot of guys out there. Well, this is the way I was taught, or this is the way I know how to do it, or my local distributor just told me, oh, this is all I had to do. My local distributor that I used was like that. Oh, use this product. Well, how do you use it? You just do this, this, and this, and it's great. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And go out and do it and be like, something's not right. You missed a step somewhere. So it's like they do what they need to do to sell it to you, right? But at the end of the day, you're still not getting the proper training. You're not reading the instructions because, hey, He just told me how to do it. So you got to take a step back as an installer, whether you're working for a company like Mike's company that he worked for, or whether you're doing it on your own. You got to take a step back and say, like you said, Kelby, at the end of the day, I'm the one that's responsible for this job. My
Yeah.
hands are the ones that touched it last.
Yep.
So
I used to tell installers all the time. I'm like, listen, we love our distributors, right? We all do. You know, we all have our favorites. We got our guy, but it's pretty rare that the sales counter guy at a distributor that you go in and sit down and, you know, they got the donuts out or the coffee machine. It's pretty rare that that person is a tile guy or a tile person or tile professional by trade. Now, they might be brilliant. They might be the best consumer of knowledge, but there is a aspect of, you know, where did they come from? Were they an insurance salesman? Were they a car salesman? Were they, you know, somebody's helper? Did they have any tile experience, or do they just get the information from the internet or video or what the 5 minutes that a rep might pop in and say, hi, how you doing? And here's a new product and this is what you do. You know, they're trying their best, right? But they kind of have that same dynamic of, they probably haven't had the opportunity for great training, mate. They're the ones that probably get to leave the office the least to actually become educated, because that's just not the dynamic of distribution. So we love our distributors, but they're usually selling what they're most comfortable with, and they're most comfortable with because that's probably the last rep that was in there, or the rep that's in there the most, right? So maybe there's some information, some knowledge there,
Yep.
but sometimes there's not. So you have to be careful there, and that's where you have to take ownership of that and say, I have to train myself. I used to tell people all the time, and I still do. I use it all the time as a tile installer, right? All three of us have been. Like, we're divas, right? We don't want to be told what to do. We're God's gift to tile. And so when you as a salesperson or a rep or whoever trying to tell me, hey, this is a new product, or this is a new technique, or this is the way it should be done, we don't want to be told, especially if we've been in the business more than a few years. Like, we know what we're doing. We'll figure it out. But the ones that are open-minded and really, you know, will learn and take the time, and it might just take an hour for them to really become proficient with the product. But the ones that are open-minded enough to sit down and listen and, you know, take that in, they can be dynamic in the field, right? They can really learn what they're doing and be proficient at it. And at the end of the day, they can sleep well at night because they don't have a lot of worries.
yeah.
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 I think most of these companies too, whatever's your favorite flavor, have sales reps. And from my knowledge, most of these sales reps, get credit for coming out on the job site and teaching you how to do something. And having
Do they?
said that, yeah. Shout out Chris. So, you know, if you got a guy that comes out and the first thing he does is pull out his tablet and he starts, well, look what I have no. I want the guy that comes out and goes, what are you, stupid? You know, you did this wrong. You could be doing it like this. Let me show you a little trick of the trade that I learned. Yeah, I'm going to listen to that guy. And, you know, I think all three of us have approached, you know, our different regions. You'll have the rural regions that you deal with where you got to go in a little slower,
A little softer.
a little softer, get them to understand. When you pull up, you know, it's a company truck, and they're like, hey man, it's a fancy truck you got there. Like, yeah, it's a
New York
company truck.
plates.
Yeah. And then you come back with, I got a 1972 C10 step side at home. And he's like, oh, we're friends now. My dad did it. My dad had one. And I found that, you know, I had DC, Philly, New Jersey, you know, those areas. You can't go in there with kid gloves. You'll get eaten alive. You know, I went into New Jersey, which I met with the towel guy, and I'm like, okay, you put your pan in like this, and he's staring at me. Now, he was nice enough not to flat out call me a jackass, but I'm explaining to him how to put the drain in and all that, and he goes, this is New Jersey. We can't put them in. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, we don't put the pans in New Jersey. The plumbers do. So then I had to go, you ever met a New Jersey plumber? Oh
Forget
my
about
god!
it.
Oh, fingers that big around, big old belly.
Crack
What?
6 inches
What?
deep.
What are you doing here? What is your problem with me? You're going to tell me because they have a system out there. I'm not sure everybody knows this. It's a fiberglass system. So they prime the floor. They put, I think it's 12 inches of wallboard up, and they put a resin down, and then they put regular fiberglass that you could fiberglass a Corvette with. Put that down and then paint over top of it, and then red guard over top of that. That is their waterproofing out there for floors.
I've even seen that in Florida. That's the exact same method.
It has since been
Yep.
outlawed. You're
Yep.
not allowed to do that out there, but they were letting everybody use it up, and the use up period kept getting pushed back because I'm sure these companies are, oh, we're not out yet.
Yeah.
They've been out
It's
for
because
like 3
somebody
years.
went and signed the bottom of that check for another 3
Yep.
years.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's pretty neat to approach different people, but use what you're comfortable with. Reach out. If it's orange, it's blue, it's green, it's red, it's pink. I don't care what color it is. Reach out to those reps. If they don't have an area rep, then find a company. Let's face it, they all sell the same stuff. They all have a membrane. It's got a fleece liner. They have corners. They have banding. They have board. They have pans. All of them have the same stuff. I will say
Some of them just have way more manpower,
they do.
or some of them invest way more
Right.
into having the right people in the field and enough people for certain markets, right? There's never enough at the end of the day, but some brands do really good job at actually putting installers into these roles so that they can then go speak the same language, right?
Yeah.
And it's always, obviously it's the bigger companies, the smaller companies that may or may not come from lands unknown and names unknown, and that have product at Goodwills and things like that that they have for sale. They don't have any manpower. They don't have any installers in the field answering questions. They don't have a technical department that you can call, and especially if it's outside the box, right? If it's not black and white, you want customer service that is in your time zone maybe and can speak to you in a way that you can say, hey, this is the dynamic, or this is the thing I have going on, versus somebody, we'll call you back, and the technical department calls you back or sends you an email and says this doesn't fit the standard, we can't help you. That doesn't do anyone any good, because the job still exists, right? Still has to get installed.
Yeah. And to Mike's point too, with a lot of these reps, it's as easy as a FaceTime call now. Sometimes we can't, as a rep, you can't get there fast enough for what they need. But hey, FaceTime me. Show me what you're working with. Send me pictures. I've been in the airport multiple times where they send me blueprints. Where should I put the drain? What should I do here? It's a simple question, but if you give the resource, which is that salesperson, enough data, they can do just about anything on the fly, and then come back to you when they're in the area and say, how did that work? Or do we need to make an adjustment? So it's simple things that we think of, like I said, hindsight earlier. It's simple things we think of, but as an installer, I never thought of it because it was, I'll just figure it out. Like you said, we'll figure it out. We'll figure a way, and we'll make it happen. We'll make it work, and it'll be just fine.
As an installer, you might see that situation one time, maybe one time in your career, but maybe one time in a year, or it's the first time you've ever seen it. As somebody that's been in the field in some type of support role, whatever you want to call the position, whichever company, we may have seen that 100 times or 1,000 times, or we've had this conversation, or so it's always amazes me as how fast some vendor or manufacturer representatives can just snap a question off or an answer off to a question without even seeing it. There's just with the description on the phone, and they're like, that was so easy. How'd you know that? It's like, well, I've seen it 65 times this month. So, we think about the reach, that you might have in a region. You have a huge pool of education out there with all these installers that are doing all these different things. So we can really, bring all that into one, we can call it the Tylocopedia.
Well, and to add to that, part too is you may not have the perfect solution for the company, you know, that it may not happen, but you know of another company that does. So it's not that you're necessarily promoting other people's products, but at the same time, let me find you a solution. Let me find you something that's going to work for you that will keep you flowing in your job, but also not hang you up and give you a problem.
Yeah, I found over the last 20 years, in distribution and manufacturing, no one brand or one manufacturer can make a solution for 100% of the projects that exist, right? Whether that's interior, exterior, wet, dry, floor, wall, doesn't matter. Some of them can go really close, like can have 90% of the jobs, the common jobs, but there's always a few out there that they just don't make that product for, or maybe they don't make that product for a reason because it's a high liability or a high risk, right? But somebody else does. Somebody else specializes in that. And so that's why having that relationship, with the people that know, or at least, having those relationships with multiple people, you have some resources that you can talk to and tell them, hey, this is the snowflake that I'm working on, right? Because every job at the end of the day is different. Even a production home, everyone's different. So they're all snowflakes, is what I always said, especially like showers. Everyone's a little unique, no matter what. Even if it was a hotel and had 200 showers, there's a couple in there that are different than the rest, right? So having those conversations and being able to, use those resources that you have, and then also verifying that yourself, because at the end of the day, it's back to you, right? The buck still stops with you.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The biggest phrase I used in the previous company I worked for was, at the end of the day, if you go to court, you're the expert. It wasn't the contractor that was the expert, because most contractors are GCs, pardon the expression. They end up becoming glorified babysitters because they're hiring you to do the job you know.
You're the professional,
So
right?
you're the professional, you're the expert. So you go to court, guess what the judge is going to say? Well, you're the expert here. You did the job for him. It comes back to you.
Yeah. Why
So,
did you do it that way? Well, because they told
yeah,
me to, but you're the expert.
yeah. And the
Yeah,
first thing they break out is the ANSI book and the TCNA book.
mhm.
Yeah.
There's a small. I think we talked about this last episode, but there's a small number of intelligent direction rating tile installers that are coming up through that, they'll go to the workshop for one manufacturer and then they'll go to a workshop for another manufacturer. And more of these manufacturers are starting to put more and more education portals together and more educational seminars at these local tile shops. And I think you're going to see a surge of decent towel people coming out of the woodwork because, advancements, technologia is coming into the towel world.
Builder
And
science is a real thing, right?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And it's lighter, faster, better. And the funny thing is I learned this from, um, the Orange Company, that, many of the, did you look into that? Can we say that? Many of the uncoupling membranes, yeah, all of us, most of us have TikTok and we watch the videos and, you'll see a Turkish farmer, like he's dragging his plow through the field and he's like, tink, hits this thing, and then next thing he knows, he has 500 scientists and historians coming out because he found a mosaic tile floor that shifted away from its castle that is still intact. We had it. There's floors in Turkey and Egypt and Italy that are still intact. They're just worn down. That have lasted through wars, earthquakes, fires, volcanoes. They're still intact. Well, when the 40s and 50s hit, we were like, we need to do it bigger, better, faster. So we're going to take a wood floor and we're going to take a cementitious product and we're going to attach it to it. And then everything expands and contracts at different rates, but it's going to be completely fine.
Yeah.
And, we went back to the tamp sand method, which is allowing everything to move around. Unless you're going concrete or some thin set to concrete. If you have a nice slab and you do the expansion joints perfectly fine, there's no better bond than unmodified thin set on pure concrete. I will give MatPay a shout out. I went to one of their seminars down in Florida, and they did a 100-ton pressure test on a block of concrete that was cinched down with unmodified thin set with a quarry towel that was hanging over top of it, and they ran the press up against it. It sounded like a bomb going off. When it broke, you couldn't tell where the quarry towel, the thin set, and the concrete were separate at one point. It was all one piece that sheared off. So, the modifieds have their place, but unmodified also has its place, and it's cheaper.
Yeah, the manufacturers don't make products just to make products, right? They all have their place. They all have their spot or their use or whether that's something specialized or maybe that's something budgetary. Right? They all have their use though. And so, everyone makes the best mousetrap, and then that changes tomorrow. That changes at the next trade show, the next best mousetrap. But they all make good products for the most part, especially the larger companies. I used to say about one of our biggest competitors. I'll say it. I'll say Latacrete. Right? People are like, they love it or hate it, but I always said, hey, they're not one of the biggest chemical and powder companies in the world because they make bad products. Right? They make really scientific, really high-end powders for a reason because one, they work, and two, they can make money at it.
Yeah. So, we're coming down to the last couple minutes. I think we could do
Are you watching the clock?
I am watching the clock. Conveniently put there by Mr. Hogan. Favorite and least favorite. And this is two-part. This is not planned, by the way, so I could see the fear on Kelby's face. Favorite thin set that you've used, and then worst job that you've torn out.
Favorite thin set that I've used. I'll give you two. I'll give you a modified and a non-modified.
Oh.
So modified, I'm going to give you all set white from Schluter Systems.
Oh, look at you.
Favorite, it solves
you
so many
still wear it,
problems.
don't you? Are you still wearing it?
It's still my favorite. I still have clothes covered in it. Favorite non-modified would be, I'm drawing a blank now. It's Mapei's.
Keralastic?
Nope, the Bond. Carabond.
Carabond. Well, you mix Carabond with Keralastic.
Yeah, so Carabond T, when that came out, so that was the old large heavy before they renamed it. That was my go-to non-modified for anything non-modified. Obviously, going over membrane, that was my go-to. I just liked, that was my product. It was their premium. It had the most Portland cement in it, but it had the original large heavy anti-sag. So worst demo I've ever done or worst job. I will tell you a quick synopsis and then we'll figure out how to edit this for time. My previous home took up all the carpet and installed a 5/16 engineered hardwood. And I knew this was a 5-year floor because it was cheap. I remember at the time it cost me $1.79 a square foot for this hardwood floor. It was a slice cut engineered, if that tells you anything. So very soft. So I was like, I'm going to take it up in 5 years. So I'm going to put it down with a V-notch and the cheapest acrylic hardwood glue that existed. Not enough trowel, not a good enough hardwood adhesive. 10 years later, I decided to take it up, me and my wife. And I've taken up hardwood a lot in my life. Single worst demolition job I've ever done.
Pieces this big.
Had to cut it all into 4-inch strips and use a machine and took up chunks of concrete everywhere I went. I don't remember what voodoo in a bucket we used to install it, but it was black magic. That was the stickiest, hardest drying acrylic hardwood glue that has ever existed, and I hope it's banned by the EPA at this point.
too funny.
Christopher?
I'm gonna start backwards. So the worst job that I did was a men's room and a women's room at Six Flags over Georgia, next to the new Goliath. And the building was old, concrete walls made out of block. So you go in, you tear out the tile, you're breaking through the block. So you had to go back, repair. Then the floor was literally old mud bed. So they basically dropped it down 3 inches so they could get pitches and falls to the drains properly and tear that all out. I personally didn't do it. I had guys that did it, but to be there and watch them doing it it was horrendous. And to have to do
It's bad
change
when you have to
orders.
watch it. And
Yeah.
it's bad.
Well, when you're doing change orders because you're breaking through the block, with the chip and hammers and everything, and you're like, oh, I got to do a change order because we got a lot of material we got to buy now. That was also one of my most profitable ones, though, too. So bad, but profitable.
Yeah,
I just picture Chris standing on the roller coaster outside, like the Victorian guy in the meme, like
right. So yeah, that was probably my worst job. Favorite thin set, I would have to say, is Arctic X77.
oh, repping old
And
school.
the reason why I like that one is it has the microfibers in it. So it's almost like your concrete that they put fibers in. That strengthens it. But the adhesion level of that, literally you can stick 18 by 18 porcelain on a ceiling and walk away and it not fall, it not sag, it not drop. Has self-drying technology,
auto hydration,
which allows it to hydrate itself and actually becomes even more, so even stronger. So that it's one of the creamiest in my opinion too. And the sand particles in that, no offense to your all set Mr. Hogan, but the sand particles in that are so minute and fine, they don't tear up your hands.
I think I've touched an Ardex product maybe 1 or 2 bags in my life because my tile installation career, that product did not exist in my state. There was no distribution in my state for it. So
if you were in California, it wasn't there.
Oh, in Alabama too. It was, at least in North Alabama, it was it was a thing of lore.
Yeah. All right, Miguel.
So I'll do the easy one first. Mine's Keralistic, favorite thin set. Just don't use it in a warm, hot summer day in a closed room because, like 9235, I'm really surprised I have nose hairs in my nose because of all the
You actually have more nose hairs than anybody I've ever seen in my life.
Well, it's more in my nose than it's on my head. So,
they migrated there.
They did. They washed down and stuck.
They went down instead of coming out.
Yeah, we used 9230, and the good thing about Keralistic is you could buy the Caravan and have that as unmodified, and then you buy the milk. I mean, the stuff stuck so well, you could cut it 50-50 with water. And
we did that and installed a lot of tile over glue down vinyl floors for years.
Yeah.
Hit it with a sander, water, Keralistic, Carabond,
and
go home.
You get it on you, and we use gray all the time. And I'd come home. So my wife's a nurse, and they're uber clean. Her hands have to be pristine. So I'd come home, and she's like, "Wash your hands." I'm like, "They're washed." I'm like, "It doesn't come off; it wears off. Like I have to wait till the skin comes off." Worse. I paint the picture just like the NSA one that I told last episode, but pull up Baltimore City, old age home. It's been there for, I think at the time it was there for probably 60 years. So probably built in the 50s, 60s, something like that. My uncle was my mechanic at the time. He walks in, he goes, "Man, we're going to have a lot of fun on this one." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Now I was green as anything. And it was always the ones that I was green on that were the worst. So we go in and we go in the basement, take the elevator down. And then he goes, you can't take that elevator back up. You have to take the elevator that's all the way down the hall, make a left, go through the locked door, around the corner. And we go in and I'll take you back. It was 4.25 speckled tile. I'll show you how old it was. It was
Like
white,
salt and
like
pepper?
biscuit, salt, pepper
Biscuit
tile.
brown?
Yep. No, it was an almond. So we go in, and I tell you what, we walked in, and I'm looking at it, and I can't say anything because I'm the helper, and I'm like, there's not a crack in this. 0 cracks. Everything was solid, lower level on concrete. That comes into play later in the story. So we get in there, tear the walls out, pain in the ass. It was wasn't mud, but it was like the metal studs were rusted. It was just awful. I had to rip the ceiling down, and I was probably 150 pounds soaking wet at the time, and I'm ripping all this stuff, and the mud was probably 3 inches thick, and I'm like chisel hammer, just now. The caveat to this is their basement was their psych ward. So the entire time we're down there, and God bless this old man, he was in his room, he was banging his wheelchair against the door, and he was going, hello. That's 8 hours of this gentleman, and I felt bad for him.
About 4,000. Got to go to Kmart.
So no matter what, we were trying, because it was just me and my uncle, and we were trying to like make him feel better. So he would say hello, we would go hello. He would never change from hello. So we figured that out.
Would have been hilarious if it was actually a parakeet, by the way.
Right.
It wasn't. He was in the hallway. Sometimes naked, sometimes not. Anyway, back to the shower. So I go in, and we couldn't.
Back in the ranch.
Yeah. We couldn't really use like saws. Like at the time we had a skill saw. It was a worm drive skill saw. But you only had to like cut straight across. So I was using the chipping hammer and like using the long blade and cutting across it. And that was, 3-4 inches of mud and wire lath and all that stuff. And I'm cutting it apart and put it in a wheelbarrow, 16 miles to the elevator, take it up, take it to the dumpster. Well, you don't want to tell your Italian uncle who's your boss that you're done until you're done, because there is no more humiliation. That was our family motto was humiliation is the best teacher. It's not,
Still is,
it's not wrong. It is, yes. So I go in and I sweep everything up. I get the vacuum and I go the extra mile. I vacuum everything up and I'm doing there, wiping it down, and I'm all proud. I go get him. Now, granted, he's been down the hallway listening to this gentleman banging his wheelchair against the door, yelling hello for 8 hours.
Open the door!
Open the door! And he comes in and he looks, and he's like, he's very sarcastic too, like me. And he walks in, he looks down, and he's like, man, it's a good job. Now there was a 2-part drain in the middle of the floor, of course. And he's like, yeah. He goes, take the drain. You take the top flange off. And I took the top flange off, and I'm looking, and I'm like, that's weird. You can't see the bottom flange. It was a lead pan. So I had cleaned it all up. And
you left the lead pan.
Left the lead pan. Now, this was 1950, 1960, so 1/4-inch thick. Room was 8x10 room, so you could. Now, I'm leaving out the smell in which all of this was omitting the entire time, because the shower room is where they take people to hose them down that may have had a boo-boo in
an
their
adult poop.
Yes, an adult poop. And so all of that went into the grout joints and the thin set and the mud. So I'm covered in it. There may have been one time where I'm like chiseling and the water just like right on the lip, just a droplet.
My mouth was open, Shrek.
Yeah, it was open a couple times. So I had to go back in what I just cleaned and chisel. Now I thought it was a badass. So I like chiseled like half of it and tried to pull it out. And it probably weighed about 300 pounds. And I wasn't picking it up. So I had the chisel tip. And of course, all of that stuff had stuff underneath of that, which was nice and wet
Sludgy.
and black and sludgy and
Blackwater death.
yeah. So
Did
that
you
was
wash
my
your hands when you at home?
no. I probably ate lunch sitting on a bucket without washing my hands. That's my worst tear out story. I think.
Yeah,
I think
you get a definite ill
yeah.
on that one.
Yeah.
I got ow.
Oh.
Yeah, you can have that one.
They're all
Any
gross.
commercial bathroom is a nasty tear out. Doesn't matter where it's at.
Subscribe, comment, and if you'd like to send us an email, it is theoldfashionedtradesman@gmail.com. And until next time, stay old fashioned.
Thanks for spending time with us on The Old Fashioned Tradesman. If you've learned something today, pass it on to the next generation of craftsmen. Please subscribe. And until next time, build it right, take pride in your work, and stay old fashioned. We'll see you on the next one.